As a country, we've made remarkable strides. We were once a divided country, but we are now a unified society. Our late President Nelson Mandela believed that sport possesses the unique power to unite people like nothing else, and it still remains a guiding truth. As we continue to see our nation getting closer, we are indeed stronger as a nation. South Africans had a miracle in 1994. The government of national unity is our second miracle. The GNU is the best thing that could have happened to this country. Supersport will tell you how much they do for this country, for instance. And they can't do it if we will take the rights and just show the rights for free. Government should also play their part. Why is our government taking so long? Because one thing I can tell you about me, I am an action man. I'm going to go back in cabinet, and our president, as the minister responsible for sport in the country, I'm thrilled that Supersport and the South African Broadcasting Corporation have reached an agreement through which the public broadcaster will be broadcasting tomorrow's game, the test match between the Springboks and the All Blacks, and marking 30 years of democracy of our nation. This once-off landmark event will be a celebration of rugby's greatest rivalry. I would also like to publicly acknowledge the generosity of Supersport in their willingness to come together with the public broadcaster to ensure that this once-in-a-lifetime historic game is available on SABC. This once-off gesture by Supersport to South Africans is in line with their ongoing commitment. And I can testify to that, you know, we have great companies, and when the story of great companies shall be written, both these companies, the SABC and Supersport, that work will be incomplete if their names are not being mentioned. As a country, we've made remarkable strides. You know, we were once a divided country, but we are now a unified society. You know, and rugby can justly lay a claim, President, to being a major catalyst in bringing South Africans together. You know, we are immensely pleased that all South Africans will be able to have the opportunity to witness this historic occasion. Our late President Nelson Mandela believed that sport possesses the unique power to unite people like nothing else, and it still remains a guiding truth as we continue to see our nation getting closer and closer and closer. We are indeed stronger as a nation. But I must say this event is also a product of our very powerful government of national unity. You know, South Africans had a miracle in 1994. And few might disagree with me. But I want to say to you that the government of national unity is our second miracle. And for Supersport, thank you for not being arrogant. Thank you for approaching these negotiations in a manner of nation building, in a manner of understanding. Nomsa, you are a star. I look at you and I've been in meetings with you and you're feisty, you fight for the people, but you are truly a product of how far black women has come in this country. And for that, I've got much respect. To Saru, when I became the minister, everybody told me lots of stories about Saru. Until I met Saru. Until I've seen what Saru is doing. And I want to say to Rian, the CEO, working alongside you has been one of the greatest pleasures. And to the man that never wants to take the credit, the man next to me, President Mark, what you have done, I remember where rugby was around 2014. What you have done, how you have made rugby one of the biggest brands. The Springbok is one of the biggest brands. And thank you for bringing back Rassie. Rassie is a national treasure. Erik is lief vir hy maar. Rassie Erasmus is a hero. Rassie Erasmus gets it. And I want to say to other sports people, you know, we must learn from each other. And if you want to learn, other coaches, if you want to learn where we should be, we mustn't be jealous. Rassie Erasmus is our guy. And in conclusion, to my president, Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, thank you for the wisdom, the vision to appoint a sports minister like Gayton Mckenzie. Now I think, you know, we as government sometimes we might lead the country, but we can also learn. The attitude that prevailed here between the SABC and SuperSport, and also the fact that this thing is being made possible, but there's going to be financial losses. Let's be honest about it. SuperSport is going to suffer some financial losses, but they said this is not important for us at the moment. It's important that the nation sees the game, which brings me to my main point. We as government, and I want to say it right here, we should not put our responsibilities. We should also play our part. I'm going to go back and make sure that NOMSA speak to the minister, and myself and the minister, Soli, will then go and ask the Minister of Finance for more funding. We can't expect SuperSport to show every game. What will our role be as government? It's very easy to go and say, SuperSport, show the games. But what people don't see, and I don't even think they would want me to say it, but you saw people win gold medals. Bayanda won a gold medal. There's 2 gold medals being won and 1 bronze. And those boys, Athletics South Africa, didn't have money to send them to Peru. They called the minister, because they know I'm an action man. I phoned many people, but SuperSport was the first one to come back and say, we will also contribute. The Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, we paid for the flights 10 or 20 minutes before they flew out. There would have been no gold medal, so I'm trying to, but SuperSport will never tell you, so I'm telling you now. That in South Africa, I'm very happy. I'm very happy for this country because we live in the greatest country in the world. And we are the greatest people. And we have the greatest rugby team in the world. And if you doubt it, watch on SABC tomorrow, watch on SuperSport tomorrow, and you will see that we are the greatest nation with the greatest rugby team. And President, once again, you make us proud. There was a Springbok player called Brayton Polser. Brayton Polser went to a school to go and speak about his journey of rugby. At that very school was a delinquent boy, was a boy that was involved in gangsterism. That boy was so inspired by what Brayton Polser said that he decided that moment, I'm going to become a Springbok rugby player. He not only became a Springbok rugby player, he became the best rugby player in the world at the time. And his name is Ashwin Willemse. So I hope that tomorrow somebody can look at Sia and any player tomorrow and say what Ashwin said many years ago and say, I'm going to become a Springbok one day, because dreams do come true. And that's what I hope to see. That tomorrow, and it's not even all, we are going further. NOMSA will also think tomorrow, you will see that there's going to be a show in halftime. There's going to be a show before the rugby to mark our 30 years of democracy, the celebration. So the people are in for a treat. There's a before and after. I nearly said after tears, but that's for the All Blacks. There'll be after tears for the All Blacks. So yeah, that's what I hope to see. Young people looking at the Sia Colises of this world, looking at our players tomorrow and say, I can be that one day. Because a kid in sport is a kid out of court. They've done the part. And NOMSA has done a part. She had to do 100% to make this match happen. She did 100%. Rendani and the President Alexander, to do 100%. They did 100%. I must now come back to government. And we must also do our part. And I want to be honest about it. We can't just stop here. We must go to soccer games. We must go there. But Supersport will tell you how much they do for this country, for instance. But they can't do it if we will take the rights and just show the rights for free. Nomsa is trying to, she's building something wonderful at the SABC. We can see changes happening. But those changes cost money. Government should also play their part. And I don't want people next week when there's another game now say, why is Nomsa not showing? Why is Supersport not showing? They must say, why is our government taking so long? Because one thing I can tell you about me, I am an action man. I'm going to go back in cabinet. The GNU is the best thing that could have happened to this country. There's only one thing I don't like about the GNU. Only one. That the people will love the GNU so much that they bring it back after 5 years. But the GNU must play their part. And our president, he leads us well. And he's the glue that keeps us together. You must understand, in the GNU you have the DA, you have the ANC, you have 10 other parties, then you have the PA, and we are not easy people to work with. That was Baizani. But the president is managing to keep us together. And I think that is the secret of the GNU. I even told the president in private, President, if you want to leave one day, you must tell me, because I knew it will fall apart. You must tell me before so I can also leave, and I mustn't be there when it fails. He said he's going nowhere. He'll be here for 5 years. So you're going to see me for 5 years? Thank you very much.
Yeah, so over the weekend, I think I saw one of your comments thanking Sports Minister Gayton Mckenzie for making it available for you to, making it possible for you to watch the games between the Springboks and the All Blacks, on SABC. And I think this is one of those instances where Sports Minister Gayton Mckenzie seems to be talking the walk, talking the talk and walking the walk, in that he really tries to pursue, what he says he will do. And I remember this was in regards to a video I made recently, on my channel here, that he spoke about that, he would strike a deal, that he wouldn't let that out of the cat out of the bag yet, but he will be striking a deal soon, which will be good news. I think this is that deal where, this game now that he speaks about being one that actually speaks to the fact that South Africa has come 30 years into its democracy. This game wasn't supposed to be one of those games that wouldn't be watched or broadcasted nationally. And so he had to fight for this one as a basis for the government to wake up, to step up, to push for national, sports games to be shown on national TV for the consumption of the nation. And I think that's in line with, his vision as a social cohesion minister. So his philosophy for sports, Ministry of Sports, isn't necessarily sports. Yes, sports per se, because he speaks about how he's a super fan and that he loves sports. He's the kind of super fan that pays their own bills, but that he's actually sort of like a minister of social cohesion. His objective is to try to help this country unite. You see, all the races that make up this powerful nation, South Africa, he argues and he sees himself as that really bull that can actually make the country unite. And this is one of the things I see in his leadership, in that he leads with a certain form of conviction. He leads with a certain form of passion and confidence that this is his role, this is his calling, this is what he has been called to do. And we can see that in his comments, in his statements, in his speeches, and I think they are quite impressive. I think they are really impressive, especially the fact that he had to negotiate for this deal. If you remember in the video, he spoke about how, Supersport cannot necessarily bring all the games to the viewership of SABC for free, because in them doing that, they would also be destroying their own business. And so he's asking for the government to move, in a way to really subsidize, if probably strike a deal between the government and also these, Supersport and the likes, in terms of these rights to viewership and all that, to strike a deal at the level of government to make sure that the citizens are catered for and have this motive and this motion for viewership as a means to achieving that social cohesion. I suspect that if he was actually the president of South Africa, I think this would be one of the objectives he would have from his seat in presidency, to try to find a way at the national level to make sports games, especially the ones of this power, rugby, because I think South Africa might be the only nation in Africa, all 54 nations as a whole, that actually tries to use rugby as a unifying tool. All other African countries I've seen, I've watched, especially from the perspective of sports, has actually used soccer. So it's been football, okay? Then maybe some sprinting or Olympics here and there, but basically it's been soccer. So the Nations Cup, the African Cup of Nations, and World Cup qualifiers and all, those have been the tools by which many African countries have actually used as a tool for patriotism, to drive this whole patriotic front. But South Africa is unique in that, it has a very strong rugby backing, which I think is really unique, because it speaks to the fact that, Africans can actually also participate in these other games that might not be termed African games per se. But then we see that in the Springboks, I was actually looking at a guy today. I don't remember his name now. I think he's Tongai. His name is Tongai something. I can try to get it quickly, because he's actually one of those black people he plays for the Springboks. Or if he doesn't play for the Springboks anyway, he's a South African that has actually played seriously, in the games, in the rugby. And, he's really powerful. When I watch him run, I actually begin through that understand the game of rugby, because rugby doesn't really necessarily come naturally to many of us Africans. I don't know, for those of you black South Africans anyway, because you've lived in South Africa for quite a long time, this might be natural. But for many of us in West Africa, rugby doesn't really strike the chord per se, you see. But when I see, yes, his name is Tonderai Chavanga. And I think this is, he says he played for the Stormers. Yes, so he played for the Stormers. He left Cape Town in 2010 after he signed a 2-year contract with the Lions, and so I think he plays for the Stormers. But anyway, what I was trying to say is that watching Tonderai Chavanga play rugby, it's slowly started striking a chord to me that, Africans might be able to also participate in these other games that are not necessarily soccer, but these other games that have been left for probably European countries and all that, you see, or some other countries or some other races, so to speak. And so I think this is the intelligence of Gayton Mckenzie. I will be posting another video where he speaks about how, even the Paralympics, you see, it appears that blacks have actually left those for probably the whites or the Indians in South Africa. And these other games, I think there was one other one he spoke about, I think wall climbing or so, and he makes a really funny example with a guy who stole a phone. I think his friend was robbed, and he spoke about how the guy who robbed him of that phone, the way that guy escaped, he climbed the wall. According to him, he says that if you can get those kinds of guys, take them to the Olympics, South Africa would be on another level. So this is Gayton Mckenzie being funny now, but I see his logic. His logic is that there are talents in South Africa hidden in places that one would not necessarily, think about. And so in trying to pursue school sports and trying to discover talents across South Africa, whether black, white, Indians and all that, to fill in the sports in the Olympics, I think he's really trying to really push, especially I think for the next Olympic Games. He speaks about how he compares how a nation as small as, I don't know, one of those nations with 5 million or so, but they were able to take, I think, 400 Olympians, while South Africa, which has 10 million population, were only able to take about 100. So he wants to really increase the number of people participating in Olympics, but this would demand the discovery of talents that can actually fill in other gaps in the game. For example, he argues that there are blacks in South Africa who are not really swimmers, but then in the schools, for example, there are some blacks who are excellent swimmers, you see, so they've not been able to be discovered, and especially in other games per se. The breakdancing, he really speaks about how he was ashamed at South Africa's performance at the breakdance, and that, there might be some talents across the board in South Africa that are still hidden, but they would have represented South Africa really. So not all sports I mean, sports shouldn't be fragmented across races. This is Gayton Mckenzie's idea at the moment. So he speaks about how, different talents from different races can actually represent South Africa in different games and sports, and that South Africa shouldn't leave some sports to some people or some races and all that. And so that's a really interesting perspective, a way he takes in trying to really galvanize talents together and build patriotism. So for me, one of the principles I'm learning from Gayton Mckenzie is this principle of building patriotism. So in building patriotism, one thing I pick from him is that, this whole notion to access to games must be crushed. There shouldn't be selective procedure on who must have access to being a rugby player, or who must have access to being a swimmer or a Paralympian, or all what have you. But in trying to decentralize the search for talent in South Africa and have them represent South Africa in all the games regardless, I think that's one really powerful thing I've learned from him in trying to build a patriotic nation in such a really culturally sensitive and culturally diverse nation like South Africa. But anyway, I'll stop here. What do you guys think about his speech here and the success he had in trying to make, the Super Sports broadcast the game between the Springboks and the All Blacks on SABC? Let's hear your thoughts. Share your thoughts in the comments.